The council convenes. The galaxy held its breath. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, representatives from 73 species sat in tense silence. The circular hall stretched upward like the inside of a vast cathedral, its walls lined with translucent panels that shimmered with the light of distant stars. Each delegate occupied a floating platform that hovered at precise intervals, creating rings of power that descended toward the chamber's center. At the lowest point sat the Council's 5 permanent members, the oldest and most influential civilizations in known space. But today, even they looked uncertain. Ambassador Kelran of the VRYNN Concordat stood at the speaker's platform, his 4 arms gesturing with mounting desperation. The VRYNN were a peaceful people, traders and scholars who had spent millennia building bridges between worlds. Now those bridges were burning. The Zarthan Empire has issued its final ultimatum, Kelran announced, his voice trembling despite his attempts at composure. 17 systems. 12 billion souls. They demand complete surrender within 10 cycles, or they will commence what they call pacification protocols. He paused, mandibles clicking nervously. We all know what that means. We've seen the footage from the outer reaches. Cities reduced to glass. Populations, relocated. A wave of uneasy murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Zarthan Empire had been expanding for decades, but always with a veneer of legitimacy. They claimed to bring order to chaos, structure to lawlessness. They followed the ancient codes of warfare, formal declarations, honorable combat, predetermined rules of engagement. The galaxy had grown accustomed to their methods, even if no one particularly liked them. This was different. This was naked aggression. The Council must intervene, pressed Ambassador Kelran, his desperation now fully visible. We cannot stand by while. The Council cannot intervene in territorial disputes between sovereign powers, interrupted High Magistrate Theron of the Dravasi Commonwealth. The reptilian diplomat's words were cold, precise, and final. It is written in the Charter. Article 7, Section 3. We may mediate. We may sanction. But we cannot wage war on behalf of member states. Then what good is this council? Kelran's voice cracked. What purpose do we serve if not to protect the innocent? Silence answered him. It was a silence heavy with shame, but also with calculation. Every species in that chamber was performing the same mental arithmetic, measuring the cost of action against the price of inaction, weighing moral duty against practical survival. That's when the door opened. Every head turned. In galactic politics, timing was everything, and interrupting a council session was either the mark of a fool or someone with news too important to wait. The figure that entered was neither fool nor messenger. She walked with the measured confidence of someone who knew exactly where she stood and didn't particularly care who liked it. Ambassador Sarah Chen of the Terran Alliance. Humanity was the newest member of the Galactic Council, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 80 years prior. In galactic terms, they were infants, barely out of their cradle world, still learning to navigate the complex web of alliances, treaties, and unspoken rules that govern civilized space. Most of the elder species regarded them with a mixture of curiosity and condescension, like watching a clever child attempt adult conversation. Sarah Chen was acutely aware of this perception. She used it. My apologies for the interruption, High Magistrate, she said, her tone suggesting she was not apologetic at all. But I believe the Council should know that the Terran Alliance has decided to act on behalf of the VRYNN Concordat and their allies. The chamber erupted. Delegates rose from their platforms, voices overlapping in a dozen languages, translators struggling to keep pace with the sudden chaos. High Magistrate Theron raised his clawed hand, calling for order, but his reptilian eyes were fixed on the human ambassador with something approaching alarm. Ambassador Chen, he said slowly, I must remind you that unilateral military action violates numerous council protocols. The Terran Alliance is bound by the same laws as every other. We're not planning military action, Sarah interrupted, and the chamber fell silent once more. She let the moment stretch, understanding the power of the pause. At least, not in the way you're thinking. Explain yourself, demanded Chancellor Vorith of the Kelvin Combine, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. The Zarthan Empire commands a war fleet of 3,000 vessels. They have conquered 40 systems. Their warriors are bred for combat and know no fear. What exactly does humanity propose to do? Sarah Chin smiled. It was not a warm smile. We propose, she said quietly, to eliminate the threat. How? The question came from Ambassador Kelrin, and there was something in his voice that might have been hope, or perhaps fear of hoping. We're not going to fight them, Sarah replied, her dark eyes scanning the chamber, meeting the gaze of each delegate in turn. We're going to make them irrelevant. High Magistrate Theron leaned forward, his ancient face unreadable. I must warn you, Ambassador. If humanity acts rashly and provokes a wider conflict, the Council cannot protect you. The Terran Alliance is young, your military is untested against a power like the Zarthan, and your homeworld is already protected, Sarah cut in. As are the VRNN worlds. As of 2 hours ago, Terran intelligence finished positioning assets throughout Zarthan space. We don't need the Council's protection, High Magistrate. We came here as a courtesy. To warn you about what's coming. And what, asked Chancellor Vorith, her voice sharp as cut crystal, is coming. Ambassador Sarah Chin straightened her jacket, a small human gesture that somehow conveyed absolute certainty. Change. The human method. The war that never happened began in silence. While the Galactic Council debated protocols and the Zarthan Empire prepared its invasion fleets, humanity moved like shadows through the infrastructure of galactic civilization. They didn't announce their intentions. They didn't broadcast their strategy. They simply acted, and in doing so, revealed a fundamental truth that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of warfare itself. The Zarthan didn't believe in stealth. For them, war was a grand spectacle, fleets arranged in perfect formations, warriors chanting battle hymns, broadcasters capturing every glorious moment for the archives. Their military doctrine had been refined over 10,000 years, passed down through generations of conquerors who had carved an empire from the flesh of weaker species. They believed in the supremacy of direct force, in the honor of face-to-face combat, in the purity of declared warfare. They had never encountered an opponent who refused to play by those rules. Admiral Kreneth stood on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. The invasion fleet was ready. 3,000 warships, arranged in the traditional seven-pointed star formation, engines idling at the edge of VRNN space. In 6 hours, they would receive the formal declaration of refusal from the VRNN Concordat, a mere formality, since everyone knew the peaceful traders had no military worth mentioning, and then the conquest would begin. It would be glorious. It would be remembered. It would cement Kreneth's name in the annals of Zarthan history. Admiral, his communications officer called out, we're receiving strange reports from across the fleet. Kreneth didn't look away from the display. Define strange. Minor system glitches. Navigation computers recalibrating randomly. Some ships reporting fuel consumption irregularities. Nothing critical, but widespread. Run diagnostics. Probably interference from this region's stellar radiation. Kreneth dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. The Zarthan built their ships to last. A few technical hiccups were meaningless. 20 minutes later, the first ship went dark. The Crimson Talon, a heavy cruiser positioned in the fleet's outer ring, simply stopped responding. Its engines remained active, its lights still burned, but every communication channel returned static. Kreneth ordered a scout ship to investigate, already composing the reprimand he would deliver to the Talon's captain for whatever incompetence had caused this embarrassment. The scout ship lost contact 30 seconds after docking with the cruiser. Get me a visual, Kreneth ordered, tension creeping into his voice for the first time. Now. The main view screen shifted, showing the exterior of the Crimson Talon. The ship looked normal, no hull breaches, no signs of battle, no external damage whatsoever. It simply floated in space like a corpse, cold and silent. Then another ship went dark. Then 3 more. Then a dozen. Admiral. The tactical officer's voice had risen to a shout. We're losing fleet cohesion. Ships across all formations are reporting system failures. I'm showing, he stopped, staring at his console in disbelief. I'm showing 47 vessels completely unresponsive. Impossible, Kreneth growled. This is coordinated. We're under attack. He activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, battle stations. Shields to maximum. Scan for enemy vessels. But there were no enemy vessels. The sensors showed nothing but empty space and their own dying fleet. In the Eternal Dominion's computer core, buried beneath layers of security that the Zarthan believed to be impenetrable, a small piece of code was rewriting itself. It had been planted there 3 months ago by a human intelligence operative who had posed as a maintenance contractor during a routine station docking. The code had waited patiently, dormant and invisible, until receiving its activation signal from a Terran transmission relay 17 light-years away. Now it was spreading. The Zarthan had never developed strong cybersecurity protocols because they had never needed them. Their ships communicated through quantum-encrypted channels that were, in theory, impossible to hack. But humanity had learned something during their short but violent history on Earth. Every system built by thinking beings had flaws, because thinking beings themselves were flawed. You didn't need to break the encryption if you could convince the system to trust you in the first place. The virus worked like a digital cancer, multiplying through the fleet's interconnected networks. It didn't destroy. That would have been crude, wasteful. Instead, it subverted. Navigation systems began reporting false coordinates. Weapons targeting systems developed calibration errors that would make them useless in actual combat. Life support systems remained functional but started consuming power at triple the normal rate, draining fuel reserves. Most insidiously, the command and control networks began introducing tiny delays into communications, just enough to make coordinated fleet action impossible. Within 4 hours, the Zarthan invasion fleet was combat ineffective. Admiral Kreneth watched his empire's might crumble like sand, and he didn't even understand what was happening. His warriors stood ready, weapons charged, shields active. But they were fighting an enemy that existed only as ones and zeros, an opponent that had already infiltrated every system before the battle had even begun. "Sir," his second-in-command said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission. It's from the humans. Put it through." Sarah Chen's face appeared on the view screen. She was sitting in what looked like a simple office, not a military command center. There was a cup of coffee on her desk, an absurd, mundane detail that somehow made the moment even more unsettling. "Admiral Kreneth," she said pleasantly. "I thought we should talk." "What have you done?" The words came out as a snarl. "We've removed your ability to wage war," Sarah replied, her tone matter-of-fact. "Your ships are intact. Your crews are unharmed. But you can't invade the Vryn Concordat. You can't, in fact, conduct any military operations at all until we decide to restore your systems. This is cowardice." Kreneth roared. "This is dishonorable. You hide behind tricks instead of facing us in honest combat." Sarah Chen took a sip of her coffee. "Admiral, do you know what we call it when you kill someone who can't fight back? We call it murder. What you're experiencing right now is justice." She leaned forward slightly. "The Terran Alliance is transmitting this conversation to every news network in the galaxy. The Galactic Council is watching. 73 civilizations are seeing exactly what happens when someone threatens innocent people in our neighborhood. You cannot." "We already have," Sarah interrupted. "Here's what happens next. The Zarthan Empire will withdraw all military forces from disputed territories. You will enter into binding arbitration with the VRYN Concordat and every other species you've threatened. And you will accept council oversight of your military for the next 50 years. She paused. Or we leave your fleet exactly as it is. Dead in space. A monument to what happens when empires choose conquest over civilization. Admiral Kreneth stared at the human ambassador, and for the first time in his military career, he felt something completely foreign to his warrior culture. He felt helpless. The Zarthan will never forget this humiliation, he said quietly. Sarah Chen nodded. Good. Remember it every time you consider threatening someone weaker than you. Remember that somewhere in this galaxy, humanity is watching. And we don't fight fair. The transmission ended. The new order. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Every species with faster-than-light capability had sent observers. Representatives from minor worlds who had never before merited an invitation now packed the upper galleries, jostling for position. Journalists from 100 different networks aimed their recording devices at the central platform where Ambassador Sarah Chen stood, alone and apparently unconcerned by the weight of thousands of eyes upon her. It had been 6 cycles since the Zarthan fleet went dark. 6 cycles of fevered debate, emergency sessions, and private meetings that ran through the night. The galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented, and now it needed to understand what that something meant. High Magistrate Theron called the session to order, though his usual authority seemed diminished somehow. The ancient Travasi had presided over the council for 3 decades, had seen empires rise and fall, had navigated political crises that would have shattered lesser diplomats. But this was different. This was a moment when the old certainties crumbled, and he knew it. Ambassador Chen, he began, his reptilian features carefully neutral, the Council acknowledges that the Terran Alliance has successfully resolved the Zarthan crisis. The invasion has been called off. The disputed territories remain free. By any measure, you have achieved a remarkable outcome. Sarah remained silent, waiting. She had been in enough negotiations to recognize a preamble when she heard one. Theron continued. However, the manner in which you achieved this outcome has raised profound questions about the nature of warfare, the rules of engagement, and the very foundations upon which this council was built. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Some species are calling your actions heroic. Others are calling them deeply concerning. All of us are wondering, what exactly did we just witness? You witnessed the future, Sarah replied simply. Whether you like it or not. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Sarah waited for them to subside before continuing. For thousands of years, the galaxy has operated under a specific set of assumptions about war. Formal declarations. Fleet movements. Honor codes. Battle lines. These assumptions worked because every species shared them, or was forced to share them by those with power. She gestured toward where Admiral Kreneth sat in the observers section, his posture rigid with barely controlled rage. The Zarthan Empire built its success on those assumptions. They counted on everyone following the same playbook. And humanity refuses to follow that playbook, interjected Chancellor Voreth, her crystalline voice sharp. You fight from the shadows. You use deception. You attack systems rather than soldiers. Some would call this cowardly. Some would be wrong, Sarah countered. Humanity learned a long time ago that there's no honor in death. There's no glory in watching your cities burn because you were too proud to use every advantage at your disposal. We fight to win, Chancellor. More importantly, we fight to survive. And we do it in whatever way produces the best outcome for innocent people. Ambassador Kelran of the VRYN Concordat rose from his platform. His 4 arms trembled slightly, whether from emotion or residual fear, Sarah couldn't tell. The humans saved my people, he said quietly. 12 billion souls who would have faced conquest, enslavement, or worse. They did this without firing a shot, without destroying a single ship, without killing a single Zarthan warrior. If this is the future of warfare, I welcome it. But at what cost? Demanded Senator Hirath of the Tellurian Assembly. The insectoid diplomat's compound eyes glittered with concern. If humanity can infiltrate Zarthan systems, what prevents them from infiltrating ours? If they can disable a war fleet at will, what stops them from controlling the entire galaxy? We have invited a power into our midst that plays by rules only they understand. It was the question everyone had been thinking but few had dared to voice. Sarah had been waiting for it. Nothing stops us, she said bluntly, and the chamber fell into shocked silence. Absolutely nothing. We could, theoretically, do to any of you what we did to the Zarthan. We have the capability. We have the access. In the time you've spent debating this, we could have compromised half the systems in this room. The silence deepened, became something alive and dangerous. But we won't, Sarah continued, her voice cutting through the tension. Because unlike empires built on conquest, humanity learned something valuable from our own bloody history. Power without restraint destroys everything, including those who wield it. We've seen it happen on our own world, again and again. Dictators who thought they were invincible. Empires that believed they would last forever. All of them fell, usually taking millions of innocent people with them. She walked slowly around the speaker's platform, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. So here's what humanity proposes. We will share our defensive cyber capabilities with any species that wants them. Free of charge. No strings attached. We'll teach you how to secure your systems, how to recognize infiltration attempts, how to protect yourselves against the kinds of attacks we just demonstrated. Because a galaxy where only one species has this power is a dangerous galaxy. But a galaxy where everyone can defend themselves against tyranny? That's a galaxy worth building. High Magistrate Theron leaned back in his seat, studying the human ambassador with new appreciation. You would give away your greatest advantage. It's only an advantage if we plan to abuse it, Sarah replied. We don't. Humanity didn't come to the stars to become another empire. We came to be part of something better. But that means the galaxy needs to evolve. The old ways, the honor duels, the formal fleets, the wars that follow predictable patterns, they favor the strong and doom the weak. That system needed to end. And you decided this unilaterally, challenged Senator Hirath. You took it upon yourself to reshape galactic civilization. The Zarthan decided it when they threatened genocide, Sarah shot back. Someone needed to stop them. The Council couldn't. The Charter wouldn't allow it. So we did what needed to be done, and now we're dealing with the consequences. That's called responsibility. Admiral Kreneth rose from his seat in the observers section. The Zarthan commander's face was a mask of controlled fury, but when he spoke, his voice was steady. The Zarthan Empire accepts the terms of arbitration, he announced, each word clearly painful. We will submit to Council oversight. We will withdraw from disputed territories. We will adapt to this new reality. He fixed Sarah with a look of pure hatred. But know this, Ambassador Chen. You have not made friends today. You have demonstrated that honor means nothing to your species. That the ancient ways are meaningless to you. You have shown the galaxy exactly what humanity is capable of. Sarah met his gaze without flinching. Good. Then maybe the next time someone considers threatening innocent people, they'll remember what happened to you. They'll remember that somewhere in this galaxy, there's a species that doesn't care about honor or tradition or ancient ways. A species that cares about results. About protecting the defenseless. About making sure bullies learn a very simple lesson. She paused, letting the moment stretch. Don't start fights you can't finish. The council session continued for hours after that, debating the implications, establishing new protocols, trying to stuff the genie back into the bottle. But everyone in that chamber knew the truth. The galaxy had changed. The rules had been rewritten. And humanity, young, aggressive, unpredictable humanity, had just announced itself as a power that would no longer be ignored. In the weeks that followed, 70% of Council species requested humanity's cybersecurity assistance. 3 minor empires dissolved their conquest plans overnight. The Tsar then retreated behind their borders and began a period of cultural introspection that would last decades. An ambassador, Sarah Chen, returned to Earth, where she filed a simple report that would become legendary in diplomatic circles. Mission accomplished. No casualties. Galaxy stable. Recommend continued monitoring. She didn't mention that humanity had simultaneously infiltrated 17 other potential threats, didn't reveal that Terran intelligence had already identified and quietly neutralized 6 other brewing conflicts, didn't explain that the cybersecurity package they were sharing was actually 3 generations behind humanity's current capabilities. Some secrets were worth keeping. Because the galaxy had learned an important lesson about humanity that day. They had learned that humans could be generous allies and terrifying enemies. They had learned that humanity valued results over ritual, pragmatism over pride. But they hadn't learned everything. And Sarah Chen intended to keep it that way. As she looked up at the stars from her office window on Earth, she allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy thought it had seen what humanity was capable of. They thought they understood how humans fought, how they thought, how they operated. They were wrong. What the galaxy had witnessed wasn't humanity at its most dangerous. It was humanity being merciful. It was humanity choosing the path that saved lives rather than ended them. It was humanity exercising restraint even when overwhelming force was available. The real lesson, the one that terrified her sometimes when she thought about it late at night, was simpler and far more profound. Humanity had barely tried. And that, more than any demonstration of technological superiority or strategic brilliance, was what would keep the peace for generations to come. Not fear of human weapons. Not respect for human honor. But the simple, unavoidable understanding that humanity could do so much more than they had shown, and chose not to. The galaxy would remember the Zarthan incident. And they would be very, very careful not to give humanity a reason to stop being merciful. The end.